I had an amazing opportunity yesterday to consciously create something really cool in my life. And it has to do with parenting, but I think it's really applicable for conscious creation in all forms. So I want to talk about what pieces I pulled together and what I did to consciously create and manifest an outcome that not only did I want to direct, but I knew was possible because I could feel it in the future timeline and I wanted to pull it into this now. So I had this experience with my daughter, who is now about 5.5, going to preschool and summer camp. And now it followed her to kindergarten, where she would be totally okay to go to school or to be dropped off. It also happened at her day home. And then she would be hiding behind me and not wanting to go in. It was really unlike her, even though she did it quite often. It didn't feel like her. It felt like a program that she was running. It felt weird. And so every time it happened, I was surprised by it. Looking back, it was a huge pattern, but she would go through waves of it and then it would be fine, and waves of it and then it would be fine. And I just held space for it for like a year. And I was like, this is understandable. Kids go through this. But when she went to kindergarten on the fourth day, she had a really hard time, a super hard time. And she was crying. And the fifth day was no better. It was worse. It was tears and it was dramatic. And it was, Mama, I don't want to go. And of course, that tugs at my heartstrings. So I realized that holding space for her to shift and change it on her own was not actually doing anything. In fact, it was making the program of behavior more ingrained. It was deepening the neural pathways in her brain of this is how I act before I go to school. Even though I had never said, oh, well, I guess because you're upset, you're not going to go today. Like I never given in, but it just was a pattern, a program, a loop. And I reached out for support. Even though I had a few ideas in mind, I wanted to reach out to a community of healers that I know that like to look at things holistically, as we do here. And I had lots of suggestions that were given to me, some of which I was like, yeah, I'm going to try that. And other ones that I felt into, and I'm like, nope, I don't think that'll work. So I took this assortment of suggestions and I did all of the things that felt aligned for me. I didn't decide, oh, I'm just going to try one of them. I made sure on this subconscious level, because I'm really embodied in working with the elements, that I had something to work with the earth, air, fire, water, and spirit realms, all of it holistically, which is the body, the mind, the heart, the soul, and the aligned action realm. And so I went in energetically and I cut or amended, let's just say, I shifted this cord that I noticed energetically had developed between us that hadn't been there previously. And I didn't cut the cord completely. What I did was I alchemized it so that it was only transferring what was in our highest and best good, so that it eventually looked like a beautiful filament of gold light. But before I went in, etherically, what I saw was it was like this huge, dense, thick, knotted rope where she was pulling energy from me, and there was some of that back and forth. And I just set my intention to do this. It was like any of this that is not in the highest and best good, transferring the information and energy between us for our best good, dissolve now and leave behind nothing but the light, right? And that gold filament remains. And I want to stay connected to her. I want her to be able to tap in and even like receive that energy from me energetically. But it was the cord that needs to remain between us that remained after I set that intention. I also went into her Akashic records and I didn't actually see anything from this earthly realm, but going beyond into the galactic Akash, I instantly knew that she had actually been incarnate when Lyra Vega was destroyed about 1 million years ago, and she had lost her mother. And so this program, this soul wound, was playing out and looping. Even though I was not the mother that she lost in that life, she was still acting as though there was a chance of that devastation occurring in this life. So I collapsed that, and then energetically, it felt cleaner, clearer. I then went to work with the physicalized things and those more 3D earthly things. And I was given a book home by her teacher called The Kissing Hand. And it was one that was suggested in this community as well, where a raccoon is afraid to go to school. And there's this beautiful story about how the mom hands down this wise secret from her mom and her grandmother, where they will kiss the hand of the person. And then anytime that person misses them, they can just put their hand to their cheek and know that they are loved. So we read that a few times. We acted it out, and we read it before sleep as well. So it would just go into the subconscious mind. And we talked about like, hey, raccoons having big feelings. You felt like that before, don't you? And really tied it to something that she could understand that was outside of herself and know that she wasn't feeling alone in that. We also talked about it, which is something that I hadn't really done, because this started when she was in preschool and when she was going to her day home and she was younger. We couldn't have the same level of conversations, but also when I would pick her up, she would be so fine, so hunky-dory that I didn't think to have the conversation about the morning. It was like it never happened, right? She was always fine immediately after. So I talked to her. I'm like, what is going to support you through this? What do you need? And she told me a few things. She needed to speak it out. And she decided that she needed to bring something with her that would remind her of home. So she took 2 little dolls to school today, and she squeezed them when she felt alone. She also did some affirmations, and one that her preschool and now kinder care teacher has been sharing with her is, I am strong and I am brave all by myself. I also got her to pick her word today when we were going to school, and she picked the word magical. And we talked about all the ways that she could be magical and that she could be strong and brave all by herself. I also, to support the emotional realm, obviously let her feel the feelings and say that there was nothing wrong with that. But also I knew it didn't feel good. So I wanted to help her shift it if she was able to. And I said, one of the ways we could do that would be to hug at home, so that it wasn't so hard to let go of me when we got to school. And we also did one other hug like before we got to the school. And then at the door, we didn't hug goodbye. I waved to her. I gave her that kiss that she could put on her hand. We got out the lol dolls and we said, you are brave and you are strong all by yourself, but you're not alone. You're here with Madame. You're here with your classmates. And the teacher also supported me by not having a big wait long time at the door, just went right in. She even had a special job for her to do right when she came in. We had talked about also finding supports from friends that were going to be there and a few other things as well. And so we took the aligned action based upon what she was feeling, but also from the community support. I worked at that physical, emotional, mental, and energetic spiritual realm stuff so that I could bring together all of the different parts that needed to happen to create a shift. And we went from in one day going like screaming, crying, just the worst terror in that fight and flight response, to her being totally good, like having a little like moment. And that was it. And I'm not saying that tomorrow might not have some tears. I mean, sometimes people have things, but I am going to continue to remind her how powerful she is. I'm going to continue to let her take something that reminds her of home and remind her every day that my love can go with her. We'd had all these conversations before, but I'd never stacked it all together. And I hadn't ever gone in to do that energetic cord clearing and Akashic collapse. And so I just wanted to speak into this because the shift was so powerful. And that's why I love working with all of the elements. Sometimes we get focused on like one modality and do one thing and then expect it to work for everything. And that's just, Typically not the case. I love belief repatterning, but it's an and also practice that I weave into everything that I do. I love physical embodied practices. I love energy work. I love doing breath work. I love doing intention setting. And we do not have to pick one thing. We get to weave together all of the things that are going to support us when we want to consciously create something in our life. And for me, that conscious creation was not so much about the outcome of having her not cry. The tears are fine. The tears and the feeling are welcome. It was about allowing her to access something different if she wanted that would be more supportive, and she agreed to it as well. So this kind of application can happen in any circumstance, any situation. It doesn't have to be about parenting. Please take this, try it out with your kids if you're having some separation anxiety or something like that when you're moving or transitioning from place to place. But how could you apply this to something else that you're wanting to manifest and create? Maybe it's a shift in your relationships. Maybe it's in a business building. Maybe it's in, you've got a feeling that you want to feel more of. Maybe like me, you love the feeling of freedom. So you don't just feel into it. You don't just take action. It's getting that body, mind, heart, and soul all in alignment and creating this holistic manifestation matrix. It shifts things so much more quickly, so much more powerfully when we bring all of the elements together into our process. So if you have questions, list them below. I just really wanted to share that with you because conscious creation and manifestation in alignment with all of the elemental forces is my jam. So thank you so much for witnessing and listening. And let me know if you have ever had any problems with this kind of thing with your kids or even with yourself. I'd love to hear the stories.